The office was always full of noise. Phones rang, keyboards clicked, and people rushed around. It was a normal Monday morning, until a new janitor walked in. He was quiet. He didn't speak to anyone. He wore old, faded clothes and a worn-out cap that covered most of his face. His shoes were dirty, and his eyes stayed on the floor. Nobody noticed him much, and those who did, didn't care. The receptionist looked at him once and frowned. "Is he really hired?" she whispered to a coworker. "No idea." The coworker shrugged. "He looks like he hasn't bathed in days." The janitor said nothing. He just pushed his mop slowly across the shiny floor, stopping now and then to clean a small spot. He was careful, very careful. As people passed by, some gave him annoyed looks. One manager almost bumped into him and shouted, "Watch where you're going, old man." The janitor just nodded and stepped aside. But he was watching, always watching. In the lunchroom, the team talked loudly. "I heard we might get a surprise visit from the CEO," said Mark, the team leader. "Ha! That guy. He's never shown his face. We do the work, he takes the credit," replied Jake, laughing. They all laughed, except for one person. Her name was Sarah. She was an intern, quiet and new. She didn't laugh. Instead, she looked at the janitor standing in the corner, wiping the table. He looked tired. His hands shook slightly. His back was bent. Feeling sorry for him, she walked to her lunchbox, took out a sandwich, and placed it gently on the counter near him. "You can have this if you want," she said softly. The janitor didn't say anything. But for a moment, his hand stopped. Then he picked up the sandwich and gave her a slow nod. His lips moved, almost whispering, "Thank you." Sarah smiled and walked away. The others looked at her strangely. "Why are you giving food to the janitor?" asked Jake. "You want a promotion from the cleaning staff." Sarah just shook her head and sat down, saying nothing. Later that day, the janitor was seen in the hallway, wiping windows that were already clean. No one questioned him. No one cared. But hidden deep inside his cart, between rags and sprays, was a small black device, a camera. He placed it quietly in the corner of the ceiling and moved on. In the evening, when the office was empty, the janitor walked to the storage room. It was dark and quiet. He opened a small locker, one that no one ever noticed before. Inside was a flat tablet, shining dim blue. He wiped his hands, turned it on, and typed. Day 1 complete. 3 failed kindness. 1 passed silently. They don't know who I am yet. The real test begins tomorrow. He closed the locker slowly, his face half lit by the glow. For the first time, he removed his cap. His face was not what anyone would expect. Clean-shaven underneath the dirt, eyes sharp and clear. His hands, though tired, showed strength. This was no ordinary janitor. This was the CEO of the company. He had built this company from nothing. He had worked hard for years, but something had changed. Lately, he felt the people he trusted were no longer honest. Rumors of bad behavior, fake reports, and disrespect had reached his ears. So he made a decision. He would become invisible to his own people. He would walk among them, not as a boss, but as a man they'd ignore. And what he had seen on just the first day disappointed him. His eyes burned with anger, but he held it in. Let them show their real faces, he whispered. Tomorrow, he would test their truth. Tomorrow, the trap would be set, and none of them would see it coming. The next morning, the office felt just like before, busy, loud, and full of people pretending to be kind while hiding their real faces. But the janitor had changed something. He arrived early, before the others, and moved quietly from room to room. Inside his mock cart, hidden beneath layers of cloth, were tiny black cameras, no bigger than a coin. He placed them carefully, one in each important place. One near the printer, one in the lunchroom, one in the meeting room, one under the table in the manager's office. He knew exactly where to look. He was not just testing how clean the floors were. He was testing hearts, minds, and character. By the time the first employees arrived, the cameras were already recording. The janitor sat in the corner of the break room, pretending to clean a coffee spill, but his ears were sharp. He listened as the team leader, Mark, bragged to another manager. "I changed the report numbers again," Mark whispered. "The clients won't know. And the boss never checks." The other man laughed. "If only the CEO saw what we really do." Mark smiled. "He doesn't care. He just wants results. And if I bend the truth a little, who cares?" The janitor didn't move. But inside, he was taking mental notes. His fingers tightened on the mop. In the hallway, 2 employees passed by Sarah, the intern who had offered him a sandwich yesterday. "Why does she always look so serious?" one of them said. "She's trying too hard," the other laughed. "No one cares about interns. They're just here to fetch coffee." Sarah heard it. Her eyes dropped, but she said nothing. She kept walking. She had a small notepad in her hand. She was writing ideas to improve the client feedback system. No one had asked her to do it, but she cared. The janitor saw her pass. She gave him a small smile again. He nodded slowly in return. He wrote in his mind, "She still has heart." Later that day, Jake, one of the senior employees, got angry at the coffee machine. It wasn't working. "This place is a joke," he shouted, kicking the machine hard. The janitor quietly walked up behind him with a toolkit. "Do you want me to fix it, sir?" he asked gently. Jake turned around, annoyed. "You? You're just the cleaner. Go mop a floor." The janitor didn't argue. He simply kneeled and began fixing the machine anyway. 10 minutes later, it worked. Jake grabbed his coffee and didn't even say thank you. The camera in the corner blinked. It had caught everything. At lunchtime, the janitor sat on a bench outside the building, away from everyone. He opened his small lunchbox and found nothing. He had forgotten to pack lunch again, but he didn't seem upset. Soon, Sarah walked by. She had 2 bananas in her hand. "Would you like one?" she asked. He looked up. "Are you sure?" She nodded. "Yes." He accepted it, and for the first time, gave a small smile. "You're very kind." She sat beside him for a few minutes. She didn't ask questions. She didn't act better than him. She just ate quietly, beside the man no one respected. That evening, after everyone had gone home, the janitor returned to the storage room. He unlocked the secret locker and took out his tablet. One by one, he watched the footage. Mark changing report data. Jake disrespecting staff and equipment. Sarah showing kindness to someone below her. Others lying, mocking, and avoiding work. He watched every face closely. He read every expression. Then he opened a new file and began typing. Day 2. Hidden cameras active. Data collected. Fake leaders exposed. True values found in the lowest ranked employee. I am no longer disappointed. I am angry. He stared at the screen for a long time. Then he wrote one final line. Tomorrow, I will set the trap. The next day, the team would be tested in a way they didn't expect. Their lies would come back to haunt them. And the janitor would no longer stay silent, because he wasn't just watching anymore. He was preparing to act. The sun rose on the 3rd day, but something had changed. The janitor, still dressed in old clothes and worn shoes, walked into the office with slower steps. He was not tired. He was disappointed. As the team rushed around like usual, no one noticed the sadness in his eyes. They didn't know who he really was. They didn't know what he had seen. They didn't know that the man they ignored was their CEO in disguise. Inside his hidden locker, the CEO turned on the tablet again. He reviewed more footage from the hidden cameras. In the meeting room, Mark lied again. He said his team had reached their target, but the numbers were fake. In the hallway, Jake shouted at a junior staff member for a tiny mistake. In the break room, someone laughed at the janitor's smell. And yet, there was one quiet light. Sarah. She helped the new intern carry files. She picked up papers someone had dropped. She spoke kindly to the security guard when no one else even greeted him. The CEO watched all of it in silence. He thought back to the years he spent building the company, working late nights, helping employees grow, creating a space where people felt safe and respected. Now, it had become something else. A place full of lies. A place where people looked down on others. A place where kindness was rare. He felt a deep pain in his heart. At lunchtime, something different happened. Sarah sat alone, working on a report. Her face looked tired, but focused. Jake and Mark passed by, laughing. Still trying to impress the boss. Jake teased. She doesn't even know who the boss is, Mark added with a smirk. The janitor was nearby, wiping a window. Sarah looked up. I'm doing what's right. That's enough for me. They rolled their eyes and walked away. The janitor looked at her and for a moment wanted to speak the truth. But he didn't. Not yet. That evening, when the office was quiet again, the janitor returned to the storage room. He sat in the dark, staring at his tablet. The footage kept playing. The laughter, the lies, the disrespect. And he made his decision. He would not wait any longer. Tomorrow, everything would change. He opened a blank document and typed, "Final test plan. Send fake emails to call for a surprise meeting. Inform the team that the CEO is visiting. Watch their reaction. Watch how they treat the janitor when they think he's still just a cleaner. Their choices tomorrow will decide their future." He saved the file. Then he whispered to himself, they had their chance. Now they will face the truth. The next morning, every employee received an unexpected email. Your GNT. CEO visit. Office will be reviewed today. Panic spread like fire. People cleaned their desks, changed their clothes, practiced polite smiles, and even printed fake numbers to make their work look better. Mark barked orders at everyone. Fix the report now. Make sure everything looks perfect. Jake suddenly became polite to the junior staff. Good job. Keep working hard, he said with a fake smile. But no one still cared about the janitor. He walked by with his mop and still received cold stares and rude comments. Only Sarah greeted him like always. Good morning, she said with a gentle smile. He nodded back. His heart felt a little less heavy. She was the only one who passed the test. At 3 p.m., a message appeared on the office screen. Meeting in conference room. All staff must attend. Everyone rushed in. Their eyes were wide. Their hands were nervous. Jake adjusted his tie. Mark smiled proudly. Sarah sat quietly, unsure of what to expect. Then the janitor walked in, still wearing his old clothes. People laughed quietly. Why is the cleaner here? Someone whispered. But then, he walked to the front of the room and removed his cap. Gasps filled the room. His face was clean. His eyes were sharp. His presence was strong. He stood tall and spoke. I am not your janitor, he said, voice calm and powerful. I am your CEO. Everyone froze. Jake's face went pale. Mark looked like he had seen a ghost. Sarah simply stared, surprised, but not ashamed. The CEO looked at each face slowly. For the past few days, I watched how you treat people when no one's looking. I saw who you really are. He paused. And I am disappointed. The room went silent. The man they had mocked, the man they ignored, the man they looked down on, was now standing before them as their CEO. The team stared at him, mouths open, frozen in shock. Only Sarah looked calm. Surprised, yes, but calm. She didn't feel guilty. The CEO took a deep breath and looked around. I built this company with my own hands, he said, not just with money, but with values. I believed in kindness, honesty, and respect. He turned to Mark. But what I saw these past few days broke my heart. Mark looked down. His confident smile was gone. The CEO continued, I disguised myself as a janitor to see the truth. Not the reports, not the fake smiles, but the truth behind the walls. He tapped his tablet, and suddenly, a screen behind him lit up. The room filled with video clips. Mark changing numbers in the reports. Jake shouting at junior staff. Employees laughing at the janitor. One employee kicking the coffee machine. Others gossiping and mocking coworkers. Everyone stared in horror. Their secrets were no longer secret. The CEO turned back to them. Every camera was hidden. Every moment was recorded. And now, I know who you are when no one's watching. Jake stood up suddenly. Sir, I didn't mean it. Those were just jokes. The CEO raised a hand. You kicked a machine, yelled at people, and disrespected the company and its people. That is not a joke. Jake sat down, face red with shame. Then the CEO looked at Mark. You faked reports, lied about progress. You made yourself look successful by covering failure with numbers. Mark stuttered. I was under pressure. I wanted results. But not truth, the CEO said. And this company is built on truth. He turned to the rest of the room. All of you had the chance to show kindness, even to someone you thought was just a janitor. But most of you failed. He paused, then smiled gently. Except one. He looked at Sarah. You gave food to someone when no one was watching. You smiled, helped others, and never looked down on anyone. Sarah's eyes widened. She wasn't expecting to be noticed. The CEO walked toward her and said softly, Thank you, Sarah. You reminded me that some people still have heart. The room clapped quietly, but only for her. Then the CEO made his announcement. Effective immediately. Mark, Jake, and 3 others are fired. All false reports will be reviewed. Anyone who mocked, lied, or disrespected others will face warning letters and probation. The room gasped again. But, he added, this is not about punishment alone. This is about healing. He looked serious, but hopeful. This company lost its way, but it can still be saved. With honesty, with real values, with people like Sarah leading the way. After the meeting, everyone walked out in silence. Some cried. Some were angry. Some were ashamed. But Sarah stood still. The CEO walked up to her. You didn't know I was the boss, he said, smiling. No, she replied honestly, but I knew you were human, and that was enough. He smiled again, truly this time. It's people like you who should lead, he said. Then he handed her an envelope. She opened it. Inside was a letter offering her a full-time job and a leadership position. Her hands shook. Are you sure? She asked. The CEO nodded. Absolutely. That night, the office was quiet again. But this time, the silence was not from secrets. It was from change. The kind of change that starts when truth is finally seen, and hearts finally speak. The next morning felt different. The office that was once full of fake smiles and silent gossip was now quiet in a new way. Real quiet. Mark, Jake, and the others who were fired didn't return. Their desks were empty. Their names removed from the team board. Some employees looked nervous. Some looked sad. Some were still in shock. But one person walked in with calm confidence. Sarah. She wasn't the boss. But now, everyone looked at her with new respect. Sarah sat at her new desk, not far from the CEO's office. She had never imagined getting promoted this fast. But more than that, she didn't let the power change her. She greeted everyone the same way she always did. Good morning, she said to the intern, handing him a coffee. You're doing great, she told a shy team member. And when the janitor, now the real one, walked in, she smiled and held the door for him. Welcome, she said kindly. He was surprised. Most people never even looked at him. But she did, like always. Meanwhile, The CEO was busy with something else. He had called for a full review of the company's systems. All fake reports must be corrected, he told the finance team. All staff will be retrained on company values, he said in a meeting. He had a new plan: to rebuild the culture from the ground up. No more lies. No more cruelty. No more silence when wrong things happened. He created 3 teams. The review team, to find out what went wrong. The support team, to help employees speak without fear. The growth team, to train new leaders like Sarah. And guess who he made the leader of the 3rd team? Yes, Sarah. She was shocked at first. "Sir, I've never led a team before." The CEO smiled. "That's why you're perfect. You'll lead with your heart." Sarah nodded slowly. She didn't feel ready, but she wanted to do her best. In the break room, things started to change. People who never spoke before were now talking. One staff member said quietly, "I feel bad." I laughed at the janitor too. Another said, "We need to do better. We were blind." The change wasn't loud. It was slow, quiet, real. The CEO watched from a distance. He didn't need applause. He didn't want fake praise. He only wanted one thing: to see the company become human again. Sarah's first team meeting was small. Only 4 people showed up. She stood nervously in front of them. "I'm not perfect," she began, "but I believe we can fix what's broken." One team member asked, "How?" "People are scared." She nodded. "We start small. Be kind. Speak truth. Help someone even if no one's watching." That was her secret. That was what saved her job and gave her a new one. Later that day, the CEO walked past the old storage room, the one where he used to hide, dressed as a janitor. It was empty now. But for a moment, he stood there, remembering. He smiled to himself, then closed the door. He didn't need to hide anymore. The company didn't either. The cleanup had begun, not just of files or reports, but of hearts, of habits, of everything that had been broken in silence. Days passed, then a week. The office was slowly becoming something new. Walls once filled with silence now echoed with small laughter, greetings, and honest conversations. But the biggest change was Sarah. She never called herself a leader. She didn't wear a special suit or speak with a loud voice. She just listened. She just cared. And that was enough. One morning, a young intern named Ria came to Sarah in tears. "I messed up," Ria whispered, showing her a file. "I sent the wrong numbers to the client." Sarah didn't shout. She didn't blame. Instead, she asked, "Did you lie?" Ria shook her head. "No, it was just a mistake." Sarah smiled gently. "Then we'll fix it together." Ria stared at her. No one had ever said that to her before. She wiped her tears and said, "Thank you, Mom." "Call me Sarah," she replied. Word about Sarah spread, not because of titles, but because of trust. Employees from other departments came to her for advice. "Can we start a kindness wall?" one asked. "Can we create a safe box for feedback?" another suggested. Sarah said yes to both. Soon, the break room had a wall full of sticky notes. "Thank you, Ria, for helping me. Mark may be gone, but let's never be like him." Kindness is strength. It wasn't big, but it meant everything. Meanwhile, the CEO watched from his office. He didn't interrupt. He just observed, with pride in his eyes. His plan had worked, but not because he was smart. It worked because Sarah led with her heart. One afternoon, he called Sarah in. "You've done well," he said. "I just helped a little," she replied humbly. "No," he said, "you changed everything." He slid a folder across the table. Inside was a new offer. Team manager. Full-time. Full trust. Sarah looked at him with wide eyes. "But I've only been here for a few months." He nodded. "And in that time, you showed more leadership than people who've been here for years." She hesitated, then slowly smiled. I accept. Later that evening, she stood before her new team. There were 10 people now, all waiting, some nervous, some unsure. Sarah took a deep breath. I don't want to be a boss, she said. I want to be someone you can come to. Someone who listens, someone who learns with you. The room stayed quiet, but something shifted. Trust was born. One by one, the team began to open up. I never felt heard before, one said. I was scared to speak after what happened, another added. Sarah nodded. Then let's build a place where no one feels small. She didn't have big plans or loud speeches, just simple words. And a strong heart. By the end of the week, her team had already solved a problem the previous leaders had ignored for months. Not because they were experts, but because they worked together, because they cared, because they had a leader who led with kindness. Sarah walked home that night, the city lights glowing around her. She thought of the old janitor. She thought of the day she offered him food without knowing who he was. One small act had changed her life. Now she was changing others, one person at a time. Weeks passed. The office had changed. Not just the walls or desks or posters on the wall. The people had changed. No more fake smiles. No more quiet bullying. No more fear of speaking the truth. And at the center of it all was Sarah. She never asked for attention. She never tried to be a hero. But her actions, day by day, touched hearts and reminded everyone what a real leader looked like. Then one morning, a surprise email arrived. From the CEO to the entire company. The subject line, a story you should know. Inside was a short message. You've all met her. You've all seen her work. Now it's time you know the truth. About the janitor, about the test, about the lesson. Everyone clicked it. Their screens showed a short video. The video began with security footage. It showed the CEO dressed as a janitor, mopping floors, cleaning spills. It showed how people treated him when they didn't know who he was. Some pushed past him. Some ignored him. Some mocked him. And then it showed Sarah, helping him pick up spilled folders, bringing him tea, smiling at him, even when others laughed. The video ended with a single line on screen. Kindness is not weakness. It's the greatest strength. The office was silent. Some were shocked. Some were ashamed. And many had tears in their eyes. They finally understood. The test wasn't about knowledge or skill. It was about character. About heart. Later that day, the CEO called for one final meeting. He stood in front of the entire office. No suit, no mic, just him and his words. When I started this company, I wanted success, he said. But I forgot something. Success without humanity is failure. He looked around the room. Thank you to those who failed the test. You taught me what needed to change. He smiled. And thank you to those who passed. Like Sarah, you reminded me why I started this company. People clapped. Some even stood. Sarah's eyes filled with tears, but she stood quietly, hands folded. She didn't need the spotlight. She already had something stronger: respect. Before leaving the stage, the CEO gave one final message. I don't care about your job title. I care about your actions. He paused, looked directly at the team. Because in the end, it's not what you say. It's what you do when no one is watching. The next day, the kindness wall was full, not just with thank you notes, but promises. I will speak up when I see wrong. I will treat every person with respect. I will be better, not just for others, but for myself. And on top of the wall was a framed photo of a mop and a pair of old cleaning gloves, a quiet reminder of the test, and the lesson they would never forget. Sarah smiled as she walked past it. She had a new office now, a new title, a new role, but she was still the same person, still kind, still strong, still leading with heart. And now, finally, so was everyone else.